I'm Roger Peterson. I have worked at Antioch for 40 years, and my official title is Professor and Distinguished Senior Scholar. I have loved my time at Antioch, and I've worked hard, and I've been lucky to be involved with a number of creative and exciting people, students and faculty as well.
I'm Roxy Wolfe. I am a clinical psychologist. I trained at Antioch, where Roger Peterson was my major professor. I was thinking at the beginning of this how, Roger, you're so integral to the foundation of Antioch's PsyD program and its success, of course. And when I remember those early days with you and David, I am struck by your vision. Might you be able to name some of the elements that combined to create that magic?
One of the things this opportunity to talk with you has done for me is obliged me to think about what's been really important to my experience. And sure, yeah, there was David. Sure, there were other faculty people. Sure, there was Jim Craiglow that gave me opportunities when he was the boss of Antioch. But it's basically been the students. The opportunity to mentor, to be engaged with students, I think has been the chief thing. It's interesting that as I retire, I'm now, as of last week, supervised 100 dissertations. The mentoring process, being a part of it, is key. And I think it's because of my relationship with Don Peterson. And of course, you know that about me. But Don Peterson at the University of Illinois invented the PsyD. And my relationship with him as a co-author and a friend and with him as my mentor lasted 25 years. And what he did is he said doctoral level clinical psychologists should not be just researchers. They should be fundamentally and equivalently therapists, providers of services. The thing that marked Don's identity was an experience he had when he was 18 years old. He enlisted in the Army in the Second World War and became a general's aide. What he would say is, I became an aide because I was the only guy who could type. But he was sitting in the back of the general's Jeep when they opened Dachau, the first Americans to come into a concentration camp. And I think it impressed his vision for all of psychology and for what psychologists needed to be able to do forever.
What he saw at Dachau was here, now, in the moment. What do you do in the moment? You're not studying a situation. You're dealing with human life and the fundamental integrity of one human being at a time in this moment. And I would think that that reflects directly toward the PsyD, the clinical training.
It's hard even to believe now that when we started all this, the graduates who got a PhD had to have maybe a quarter of the clinical training that all of you at Antioch have received and that people in PsyD programs received. And that was thought to be okay. I mean, it seems absurd retrospectively, but yet that's what we tried to bring to doctoral training, that an immersion as a clinical trained expert, as a person who was engaged in and loved sitting with people and had a vision and a commitment to helping others. When I came to Antioch, as I have noted, I came sort of as an administrator. I was going to organize things. I was a nuts and bolts kind of guy. And then I got involved in the National Council of Schools and Programs of Professional Psychology. And I had the opportunity to become a national leader in that situation. I chaired two national conferences, one with Don, and uh, we wrote an early book on the competencies. And then in 1997, we wrote the practitioner scholar model paper. And there's been revisions of that. Two things that I think um, were the most important things that I've written. I've written about it in more than one place. And Don and I wrote an article about it on epistemology. But they had two elements, these papers. One is they identified psychology as fundamentally local. That is, it didn't matter so much what the national or international findings were. It didn't matter that in Asia they respected the elders if in New Hampshire they don't. You had to deal with the local culture, the one that we were here. And sometimes the local culture was even just the culture of your family or you and your partner. So there's that piece. And then there's the other part, which is the culture piece, which I mentioned, which I think is the coming part of psychology now. And I think it's an important part of the future.
How might your program honor your many gifts to us? And what do you hope that your legacy will be?
First, I would hope it would become more multi-theoretical. And the reason why is because we don't know the truth about everything yet. And so we ought to be teaching various approaches to that. So that's one thing. I think we've let that go a little bit, and I would like that to return. Certainly, it needs to be, and I think it is becoming more culturally based. It's not just what happened to you when you were 3. It's what happens in your culture, in your family, with the religion you grew up in or rejected, with the schools you attended, with the politics of the communities. So I want the cultural part. And then I think the importance of the faculty being active clinicians is no small deal. I think it's true that students who like me or took my courses liked that even if I was on a theoretical head trip, that I tried to or obliged myself to apply it to actual real people that I was seeing later in the week. And that I still feel like that's an important thing to do. When David and I started, we used to talk that what we would do is we would train enough people throughout New England that we would sort of be able to revolutionize the mental health of the New England states. And at that time, there were very few doctoral practitioners. And now there are quite a few, and Antioch's largely responsible for that. What I would like Antioch to pay more attention to is how they could bring those people together as an ongoing sort of effort of community psychology. And remember that was where we started, that's what we hoped for, and that's what we're in a position to do at this point in time.
You recognize, I think, that over and over and over, you're talking about local culture. From talking about Don Peterson arriving at Dachau, you're talking about local culture over and over and over through every one of these responses that you're offering.
I was asked if I should, what I should do if I request donations. And what I said is that it should go to the what's now become the Roger Peterson Speaker Series. And Roxy, you have been a prime mover in that series and getting it going. And I'm hoping that will be something that will live beyond both of us, and that it'll be something that will go on. And that's important because one of the things we can do is bring in people from the outside from outside of our local group to introduce students and faculty to thoughts and ideas that they haven't had access to, that they can, and if they're lucky, they'll have convincing and exciting proponent of a new point of view, a new orientation. And certainly we've had some great people who've come.
What has our program given to you?
Boy, I've sat with the gifted students year after year. You among them, you were toward the beginning, Roxy. And I think that's been the main thing. And one of the things also that you get to do is you get to have these conversations with people. That is, I become stimulated to rethink my ideas on things when I'm trying to explain it as a reaction to a student question that person raises. And then we can have a collaboration. Most psychologists don't have once a week intense conversations about theoretical and reflective clinical work. They just don't have that opportunity. And Antioch gave me this, and it's something I'll be missing as I retire. And I'm it's hard. It's hard to figure out what's going to happen when you don't have something that you've had weekly for 40 years. What's it going to be like? And I don't mean to say that I'm going to be struck by disaster, but I do mean to say that it will be something that I'll notice.
Roger, thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. I'll treasure these moments as I treasure those old moments and those wonderful stories that I have.
Yeah,
Thank
boy.
you.
Our hair was a different color then. Do you know that, Roxy?
It sure was. It sure was. I'm big on silver now.
Oh, okay. Me too.